What is going on, YouTube people, today? Kabooms and Color Blasts. We did this with downtowns. I think that was like a week or so ago. I looked at population counts for downtowns and charted them over time using fabulous gem rate data. We are going to do the same today with Kabooms and Color Blasts, covering now the three biggest case hit repacker chases of our modern times. Now, some quick parameters for this. For Kabooms, we're going to look at just football. For Color Blasts, we're going to look at basketball and football. Also, we are just talking about base level Kabooms and Color Blasts, not green one-of-ones, not golds, not draft picks, just regular old football, regular old basketball. No duels. I know that some of the Kabooms now have duels and the Color Blasts have duels. Didn't include any of those. We're just going with the plain, simple, straight Kabooms, the plain, simple, straight Color Blasts. Now, we'll talk about it when I get to it, but Color Blasts, I did include the Obsidian Blacks because there has been a few years of those, but I charted those on their own separate line. This is using PSA Pop Report data, so it is not all-encompassing. It is just looking at PSA Pop Report data, but it still gives us a general idea. These are not exact counts. There's obviously stuff that's sitting raw in other holders, still in boxes. Some of these numbers are potentially inflated because of cracks and resubs. All those little asterisks and anecdotes apply, but generally speaking, this is going to give us a pretty good idea for how the population and print runs have grown over the years, and are these actually truly rare? Now, that comes down to demand. We're just looking at the supply side. Right now, the demand is through the roof on these, so that's impacting it, but it's still interesting numbers. When we get to the football, basketball, and Color Blast, it's really, really interesting stuff. But before we dive in, if you have Color Blasts, Kabooms, etc., you need to protect them. And how else are you going to protect them but with our friends over at the Penny Sleever? Your home for affordable supplies, penny sleeves, mags, top loaders, semi-rigids, team bags, whatever you need, they got it. Free shipping, $59 and up, and you could use promo code NEOCARDS on your first order to save a little bit of money. Link will be in the description down below. So let's talk Kabooms first. Football only. Green line, regular old Kabooms. There's multiple lines here because Panini shook things up a little bit in recent years, so we had to split the data. 2019, 2020, 2021, you just had Kabooms. And you could see the exponential growth from 2019. They were 1,390 on the Pop Report to in 2021, there were 6,000 on the Pop Report, which is crazy. That's the entire checklist. Now, we will look at an individual player. I use Patrick Mahomes as a baseline. We'll look at that in a second. That gives us a good idea on the print runs for an individual player because Mahomes is probably going to be the highest graded and he appeared in the most years. But regardless, you could see exponential growth there. Now, in 2022, they changed things up. They switched to two versions of Kabooms. There is a vertical and a horizontal that they split out separately on the checklist. I believe, and I am no Kaboom expert, but I believe in the 2019 to 2021 period, it kind of flipped between the individual card. It wasn't segregated out in its own checklist. So in 2022, they split those up. And the overall numbers drop way down. They start very close together, and then you could rapidly see verticals stay pretty rare. Horizontals, they print the crap out of. As recent as 2024, there were 8,000 horizontals on the Pop Report compared to only 711 verticals. So much, much harder to hit. Now, let's look at an individual player because I actually think that kind of gives a better representation of what's going on. Here is Mahomes. Mahomes has appeared in every single year of Kabooms. This is his total pop by year using the same parameters that we used before. The only one that he is missing is a 2022. He does not have a horizontal, but you could still get a pretty good idea what's going on here. So 2019 is regular Kaboom. There was 50 of them, or there is 50 of them total graded. Pretty rare. 114 in 2020. By the way, this one in like a PSA 10 is a monster. This thing sells for a ton of money. 114 in 2020. 198 in 2021. Then in 2022, it drops back down to 20 again with just the vertical. The verticals stay extremely rare and extremely flat. 20, 23, and 21. The horizontal, as mentioned earlier, not that rare. 333, 461. Massive differences between those two, and a massive difference from what we were seeing back in the early days where the total pop was 50, 114, and 200. It's almost doubled since 2021, more than doubled on his horizontal. Vertical continues to still be extremely rare. So that's one thing to keep in mind on the modern Kabooms. And maybe this is common knowledge. I don't follow the Kaboom stuff super close. It's not my shtick. I don't like the Kabooms, to be quite frank. Of all of these, the Color Blasts are my favorite. So I am not in the weeds on Kabooms, but verticals seem to be pretty rare. Horizontals, not so much. Demand is strong for them, but rarity, not so much. Let's look at Color Blasts. Now, Color Blasts, we included basketball as well, and that makes this one fairly interesting. I did separate out, there's four colors here. I did separate out Panini Obsidian because they make a black Color Blast now. They have for the last couple of years. So I separated that in its own thing. And once again, this is football and basketball only. No parallels, no duels, no draft picks, no WNBA. Just a true blue football and basketball. So just regular old Color Blasts. That's the orange line is football. The blue line is basketball. Back in 2019, pretty close together. 490 total, 283 total. Pretty rare. Then look at the divergence. 2020, almost double, actually more than double the amount in football compared to basketball. 2021, way more football than basketball. 2022, way more football than basketball. I mean, look at these differences are massive. Now, 2023, we get black. So here we have football way up here, and football Color Blasts just go to the moon. Not that rare anymore compared to basketball anyway. Basketball way down here. Now 2024 basketball and 2024 football Obsidian does not have a lot. A lot of these are sitting at grading still, so I don't focus too much in on these two numbers. I have a sneaking suspicion these are going to end up here where they belong. But crazy the divergence between football and basketball on Color Blast. So you can see the blacks kind of fall in the middle. They are way less rare than the regular, but still way more of them than there are in basketball. Basketball's a little bit closer together. Now, I did the same thing, pulled out an individual player and said, show me the total pop count for an individual player. Now, for this one, I don't think I included black just to keep it simple. Yeah, I just did the regular ones. The players that show up the most, no surprise, Mahomes and Curry. Look at the differences in total population for these two. They start out in 2019, both extremely rare. Football then goes crazy. Mahomes, 134, 107, 119, only 60 in 2023. Not sure what's up with that. And then back to 105 in 2024. And this is all grades. This is not tens. This is all grades. Look at Steph Curry, 25, 36, 17, 10, 14, and 4. Now, I assume that 2024 just hasn't had a lot go through the pipeline yet, but you get the point. The basketball Color Blasts are actually still extremely rare compared to a lot of the other case hits that we've looked at. Way more rare rare than downtowns, way more rare than kabooms, at least on the basketball side. Now, what's not represented here and what we have not talked about in any of these videos, I mean, we've kind of talked about it, but not like dug into it. And I didn't run any numbers for any of this, but just as a high level talking point. The other thing to keep in mind is beyond print runs, they have also watered these things down more. What do I mean by that? Downtowns, now you have uptowns. It's not exactly the same thing, but the gist is there. Also, those are not really all that rare. On the Color Blast, we mentioned it. Now there's a black Color Blast and a regular Color Blast. There's dual Color Blast where it's 2 players on it. There are parallels of the Kabooms. There's golds and 1-of-1s. There's some other Kaboom parallels out there. There's some other Color Blast stuff that they're doing out there. There's some other downtown stuff that they're doing out there in regards to parallels on the more modern ones. So that isn't going to show up on any of this because I kept this to just baseline, regular old-fashioned Kabooms, downtowns, and Color Blasts. And that waters things down even more. It muddies the waters on what people might actually be looking for and or chasing. So keep that in mind as well in this ultra modern product that we're seeing. Now, the unknown waters here is, and we hinted about this when we talked about the downtowns, this is it for the most part for these. We're going to get 1, maybe 2 more runs of these, depending on the sport. Panini's basically done with basketball product. Football, they have 1 more release, and they're done. They have 2025 stuff, and that's it for this upcoming season. And then it's going to switch over to Tops. And Color Blast, Kabooms, and Downtowns go away. So even though the print runs are exploding on these, all of a sudden, it's going to just get cut off. And that's it. There's no more coming to market. So will these hold up long term? I have no idea. I don't have a crystal ball. My guess is these are going to get saved from themselves. Because of Panini losing the license, you're not going to get more of these. So there's going to be these limited runs of this stuff. And what's out there is out there, and they can't water it down. Especially with players like iconic players like Mahomes, where they could put him, if they, let's say they had the license for another 50 years, Mahomes is going to be in a Kaboom, a downtown, and a Color Blast to some degree or another every single year from now until eternity. If they kept the licenses. They're not, so that's not the case. So it's kind of artificially locked in a player like that to where he is. Same with Brady. Same with, any of these guys that take off. Say Jaden Daniels becomes the next great thing and wins 5 Super Bowls or whatever. I don't think that's going to happen, but maybe he does. You're not going to have a ton of Color Blasts, Kabooms, and Downtowns for him because they didn't have the license anymore. So those are some interesting angles to think into that. As long as they remain in the zeitgeist and as long as people look back at them fondly, like I just don't collect this stuff, and that's fine. I do kind of like Color Blast. I don't own any. But are people going to look back at these? The running theory has always been that this is this generation's like PMG or Essential Credential. They're not numbered, but these short print stained glass, these short print inserts that kind of transcend the hobby that everybody loves and everyone wants to go chase. And is everyone going to look back fondly on these over time? Those are the things that we don't know. But like I said, the biggest advantage that they have, I honestly believe, is the fact that Panini lost the license. And it's going to save them from themselves. Because you could see, looking at the way a lot of these population counts were trending over all 3 of the case hits, how this was going to end up. They were just going to keep adding on and printing these things to the moon and back again. But that's not going to happen now. So, and then we'll see where the money shifts once it goes to Tops. That's probably, we hinted at it, or we touched on it briefly in the downtown video. But that's going to be the interesting thing as this shift happens, because Tops is just not known for their case hit inserts. They have some cool stuff, but nothing has really hit like the Kaboom, the Downtown, and the Color Blast, in my opinion. There's some out there that are intriguing. They've kind of flew close to the sun on some that are very close to being kind of what Panini's doing. like with the HFAs, the helixes, those sorts of things. And some of them are okay. I actually like the home field advantages. I prefer the HFAs to downtowns, to be quite honest. I talked about that in the downtown video. But that's where we sit. So interesting data, do with it as you please. I am just here to present it. And if you want to poke around with any of this stuff, these are reports over on GemRate's website. You can go to gemrate.com, go into the resources tab, go to reports, and he has the CSV files for a bunch of different insert sets. And all I did was download the CSVs. I cleaned up some stuff that I didn't want, like removing draft picks, like removing WNBA stuff. And then I fed it in the chat GPT and started asking it questions and say, hey, graph me this, graph me that, show me this. How about this? How about that? And, you know, it spits out the data for you. It does a lot of the stuff that I wouldn't normally be able to do, that it would take me forever to do just by poking around on the AI machine. So that you could go, anyone can go do this. This is not exclusive data. It's on GemRate's website for free. Go play around on there. This is the type of stuff that you could do to get an edge. So, as always, curious for your thoughts and comments down below. We will catch you boys and girls on the next one. Peace.